All right, welcome back, everybody, to our next installment of this multiplayer game design in Godot, 4 point something or other. This one's a pretty short one, I think. I'd like to just introduce at the moment, we've got our players moving around. We're able to grab this, we're able to respawn, we're able to have different levels. Um, but especially in my current game, I have a pretty terrible, everybody looks the same and there's no real way of keeping track of who's winning, and I got to decide how I want to actually play this game. And I was starting to, as I've been designing it, we're kind of evolving and emerging. I was thinking that really what I'd like to do is I'm making kind of a chase game, who can get to the star, and then we move to the next level. And maybe the idea is that the players are competing against each other to try and get to the star first. And if you get to the star to move to the next level, then you get a point, and we can have a little competition that way. So I thought today we would add some little score and maybe a easier way to tell who's who, because at the moment I've got exactly the same looking players in each one. So there's lots of ways you could take this on, but I thought maybe we'd just do some names here rather than changing the icons or something like that. So I am going to add to my, where's my lobby system here? Oh, my lobby is not its own. I was going to add a another node here, and it is a line edit node, kind of like we put in our host IP. I'm going to add a line edit node, and this one I'm going to call a player name enter. Just something where they can put their name in so that they can be better identified as they are playing the game. And I'm not really spending a lot of time on great graphic design here. You can spend a little bit of time extra. I'm going to put some placeholder text here to say something like, please enter your name here, just to clearly indicate um, that, and maybe we'll put it up top so it's a little more dominant, and it doesn't matter if you're going to host or join. You could type this, then type that, then join, or type this and then host. So I'm going to grab that label, and I want it to appear next to each of the players as they're moving along. So that, I think, is not going to be too much of a challenge. We'll do that right on the player in the player script, and essentially each player will just grab its name. Now, fortunately, because of the way we've set this up, we're just hiding the lobby. We're not deleting it or getting rid of it. It's just being hidden away. So all that information still exists there. So when the player gets created, we can actually just grab the text the from that field there, and that is going to be done by each player because the information just still sits there. So I'm going to do this in a ready to make sure everything is actually there. So I'm going to do a, rather than the enter tree, the func ready, oh, underscore ready there. Um, I want to grab this, but I want to grab this only if I only want to grab my name if I am indeed the player and therefore I am the multiplayer synchronizer. So I'm going to steal that line of code from below here and essentially say, because not every player needs to grab the name from the front, only the player I represent needs to grab the name from that field. So I'm going to say, if the multiplayer synchronizer is the multiplayer authority, so I know that I am my player, and I am going to grab my name from that field. The other players that appear on there are not going to grab the name from a field. That's going to be taken care of on their computer. So I am grabbing mine, and I want to look at a slightly different way than we've done so far to kind of go up the tree. So if we think about this here, I actually have to get some text from this field, but the player has been added later, so I can't make a direct path. I could use some signals, but that could get a little tricky as well. So all I need to do, the player is going to be added later on. It's going to go up to multiplayer, into the lobby, and then grab the text from that player name edit. So we've done other ways before using the get tree and the get current scene. There's a nice new other way in Godot 4 here. So I'm going to make, first of all, a player name variable. And it equals, and I'm just going to get node. And if I know where the node is, which I do, it's right at the top here, but I can go to the root. Basically, this means go all the way up to the very, very top of the tree of nodes here. And then from there, I'm going to go grab the multiplayer node. And inside that multiplayer node is a lobby. Oh, and this should be a string here. So let's type that. There we go. Root slash multiplayer. In there is the lobby. And then inside the lobby is the player name. What do I call that? Player name enter. Get rid of you. There we go. Double quotes. And what I want to do is I want to get the text from that. .txt. So there's a slightly other way of, especially if you know how your game is all laid out and where all the nodes are, this /root allows you to go all the way to the top, and then you can kind of filter down, giving what's called this node path. It's basically a directory or a list of how you get to the node that you want. The node I actually want is player name enter. I want to grab the text, and I'm going to store that in a variable name. Now, on my player, I am going to display my name. So I'm going to just throw a little label here onto it, and I will call this the player name label. And I'm just going to move it around here. So perhaps I'll just place my name just over top of my player there, and maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Just test to see how. Here is my name. Yeah, there we go. That's a pretty long name there, so we'll have lots of space for that player name label. I'll have a dummy right now, but in the code, what I want to do is when I'm ready, I am going to make that player name label equal to the player name that I just grabbed from that node tree. Oh, and I wanted not that. I would like the text of the player name label to equal that player name. So, and I'm going to make a little comment here. Name myself. There we go. Now let's see how that plays out when we actually play our game. And we'll see what we're missing, because there's going to be a couple little issues here, because keeping in mind you are only naming yourself on your version of the game, and that is not going to be useful in a multiplayer game, but at least we've got the start here. So I'm going to name myself Jeff, and I am going to host this game, and there I am, popped up right there. That's great. And then on the client, I will name myself Bob, and I am going to join the game here, and you can see Bob is there. But one of the issues is that I am named Bob on my game, because I did that on that multiplayer authority, and Jeff is named Jeff on his game, but that information is not being shared back and forth. So you can only see yourself. Now, that might be useful or something you want in the game, but I would actually like to know, especially if we start to have 2, 3, 4, 10 people join, I want to know who's who and who I'm fighting against, and later on maybe who's got the high score in my game. So this current information is being stored in each player, here, as a variable. And if we think about that, any of this information that we wanted to share back and forth in the game, we are already doing that with our multiplayer synchronizer. Keeping that in mind is that right now I am currently sharing my player's position with all the other peers. So this is taking care of synchronizing that between peers. So we should be able, in theory, to also just share what the player name label looks like as well. So if I want to add this as a property, you'll see I'm going to grab the player name label, and I just want to make the text the same across all of my devices. So I'm going to, on both spawn and sync, I am going to update all the other peers that are connected so that this is hopefully the same as the authority, which is being currently handled by the multiplayer synchronizer. Oh, and I've just played the scene by accident, or the player scene by accident there. Close that, close that. Unfortunately, there's no quick kill here. Okay, don't want you. So let's try that and see if that syncs up those names, in which case you've now at least able to identify. And that's kind of the cool part about a multiplayer, is that you get to see who these other people are and play against them, even though they may be not even in the same room as you are. We'll probably, and there's lots of ways we could do it, but I may take advantage of that same kind of idea just to see who the high scorer is based on how my game is designed. So here is my Jeff, and I'm going to host. There I am there, and this is Bob over here, and Bob is going to join there, and there we go. And now I can see that both Jeff and Bob are in sync and their names are shared. So that multiplayer synchronizer takes care of all of that complicated information for me, and now I get to see who's who. So that's great. And as I said, what I'm thinking of is whoever gets the star gets a point. So I'm depending on how you wanted to lay this out, you could have a big, scoreboard up top with all the names, but that's going to get a little more complicated as new peers join. You'll have to add names to the top there. And since my current game is just a single small screen, I could see that the players could actually just hold on to their own score, and we could kind of see they could wear them as kind of a trophy or a badge of honor. So I think I'll do that. There's lots of ways, though, you could add this, but I got a player name label maybe right up over here. I'm going to add a another label, and I'm going to call this one the player score label. So I think I'll steal that same idea. Let's just move that up here. And I'll put it over in the corner here. So we'll have their name and then the score that they're going to get right there. Now the score is going to look a little bit different because it is not something that we can just share between different players. Because it's not I guess the text could be done here, but I need to also keep track of the score. So on the player here, I'm going to, first of all, set up a variable. And for reasons we'll see a little bit later here, I've got to do it in a slightly different way. I want to export that var. And I'm going to start off as 0. So that each player starts off the game as 0. And this is the reason I need to do this slightly differently, is because this has got to be updated all the time. It's not just created at the start of the game. It's something that I need pretty close tracking of. So I'm actually going to set this under the physics process delta. Now, I don't want to do it only if I'm the multiplayer synchronizer. I want to do it for all the players on each one here. And then maybe I'll get the multiplayer synchronizer to synchronize those scores. So I'm going to say, same idea here, player score dot text is equal to the score that I've got on my player. So that would just be my score variable. Now, keeping in mind, score is a number, so we're going to have to string that to make that display work. And I think if we set that up, we just ran that here, we'll be able to see that that our scores are hopefully displayed, and that we can start to add to it. And it's going to be a really very similar to a one-player game, because one player is going to get there. Let's see here, I'm Jeff, and I crashed there. Invalid set index test on value type string. Node not found, root multiplayer lobby. Interesting. That was working just fine before here. Let's hashtag that out and replay our game to see why we're getting that error. Oh, because I called it, I think I know why. Double check here. This is called player score. Did I in fact call it? No, it's called player score label. That's why. There we go, player score label dot text, and let's restart that. Sorry about that, but you know, debugging is a process, and it's part of the programming experience, which you'll often miss on a lot of YouTube videos because they edit all this part out. But I want you to see that everybody's going to make mistakes as we go along, and here's how we puzzle through and kind of solve them. Let's see here. Oops. Bring up my Jeff as my host. Move them out of the way. Oh, I see a 0 there. I'd probably want to move that label up so it looks a little better. And we will put Bob in here. Bob's going to join. There's Bob 0 and Jeff 0, which is great. Both players have 0 score at the moment, but they are getting displayed, which is wonderful. And now all we need to do is to actually get a point. And we get a point by getting to the goal first. So fortunately, we've got right here, this is how we progress in this. We've got that set up so that when a player enters the body, or so when the body, which is a player, enters into this goal, which is in area 2D, well, we change levels. Well, before we do that, let's just give the player that got there first some score. And fortunately, that information is contained in body. The body that hits the area is passed to this function as body. So I can say the body that hit me, well, it has a variable called, I believe it was player score. Let's double check that so we don't get an error there. Nope, just score. Bomb script there. Oh, goal, sorry. The score variable is going to increase by 1. So I'm just going to do a plus equals 1 here. And at the moment now, each player is going to keep track of their own score. There's probably some better ways of doing this by making sure it was the multiplayer authority, but we're going to give it a try here and see. Just add that to the score. Let's play our multiplayer, and we should hopefully be able to have a look and see if we can keep track of who the winner on our game is as we play along. Now, again, if you want to have a giant level where they're moving around, you can't see the players at all times. Maybe this isn't the best way, but this is how I'm going to do it on my game. There's player Jeff 0. Here's Bob over here. Joined, also has 0. Let's give Bob a chance to get some points first. Bob joins. Yeah, Bob's got 1. Nice. And Bob has 1 on both of our games. Perfect. We can try here. Boom. Bob's now got 2 and 2 on each game. Perfect. So I get to see now how it plays out. There's Bob 3. Now let's give Jeff a chance to get a score just to make sure everything works. Yes, and Jeff's got 4, 3. Now they're all tied up. And now you've got a little competition going, a little friendly competition. You could probably have some kind of end game. Maybe there was a score you were trying to get up to and some kind of competition, or maybe you could just see at the very end when you reach the final level if you wanted to see who won. Lots of ways to implement that, but now at least you have synchronized name labels and some synchronized scores so that you can keep track of the different players. And this is going to be especially powerful if you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 people joining your game, and maybe you have a much bigger arena than I've got. Again, if your players are not always on the screen, we may want to start to have a label up top or something like that so that you could see the leaderboard as things go. But at the moment, there is some new ideas on connecting to your root nodes and also synchronizing different pieces of information.